Welcome to episode 9 of the Willpower Podcast. My guest today is David Wild. David is the second triathlete that I've had on the podcast, and it was amazing to have him come sit down and have an extended conversation. He has had a very interesting life, going through various phases and learning along the way. I think this episode really draws a lot out of what motivates him and how you can take that and apply it to your own life. I hope you enjoy. All right. Is willpower teachable?
Is willpower teachable?
What do you think about that? You break it down.
Oh, wow.
Answer it however you want.
I love that. Yes, my instinct says yes right off the bat. Because I think a lot of, I would call it a skill. And I feel like, yeah, skills can be taught, trained, perfected. And yeah, I mean, willpower to learn it and to get better at it definitely is something that I think takes practice, takes like the action of putting in the effort. One of those, like many things, like learning by doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a good one, because it's like so many things require willpower to do them, and so many things require willpower to learn how to do them. So yeah, like stepping back and looking at the main thing that's powering
the actual willpower.
Yeah, the actual willpower. I mean, I think it's teachable by getting personal with the individual who wants to learn how to get better at having willpower. But having to tap into their goals, to tap into their motivations, and also to like think about who their role models are too, and to like, yeah, I just feel like it's very like individual in that way,
like what the actual thing they want to apply the willpower to. Yeah Beyond just like, oh, I just want willpower. But it's like, okay, but what's the thing? What are you aiming for?
Yeah. Getting specific about it for sure. I feel like that's super important. And then using that, like, let's say there's a success story in their life where they got the job or they got the promotion or they, did the race. And then using that for the next thing, using that as the metaphor, or using that as the motivation, and like, yeah, the analogy to apply to the next thing.
Right.
And then you string those together and you do them multiple times, and then you have all these different instances where you can like draw from, and be like, well, I did that one hard thing and I did that one thing. And then you're like, oh, I've done all these hard things. Like I can now apply that to like this other thing that might not be that hard.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into let's start with triathlons. So, we both did the Captex triathlon very differently. You were the second place finisher.
Yeah. First place loser. No, just kidding.
I honestly think I might have been last place in the swimming.
Oh, really? Wow.
Guys. I think so.
Oh my gosh.
And I was in the like 20 to 29. And so I got passed by everybody.
That's tough to be in that position. Like that takes some guts to keep going. After, like, I mean, it's demoralizing, right? I don't know. How did you feel about that?
I felt, so my only win from that whole swim was that I didn't, you know how they had the kayak people?
Yeah.
I didn't stop at any of them.
Nice.
Like I was like, fuck that. I'm going to just do the whole thing.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
No matter how long it takes.
That's good. It was hot. That water, I mean, the day was hot, but the water was so hot for me. I mean, thank goodness it wasn't a wetsuit legal swim,
Mhm.
because if it was wetsuit legal, then you got people who wear it, and then I'd be like, well, my competition's wearing it, so I have to wear one too, because it does make you faster. But in that water, it would have boiled us alive.
Yeah.
It was like, I think it was like 90, like legit 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
The water.
I didn't even realize that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it definitely was
Yeah.
warm.
Definitely the hottest swim I've ever done, for sure.
Wow.
Hands down. And to like race when it's that hot, like you can't really train for that either.
Mhm.
And so to try to like surge and like, yeah, like elevate your heart rate, it's already elevated just by being in that bathtub. Yeah. And so like I'm used to like surging and trying to catch on to different people's feet, chasing their feet, and, you know, follow the bubbles. But I just couldn't. And I think, honestly, I think that's where Noah, first place, basically won the race. I think. I don't know, because his swim time wasn't posted, but
I think he said he was in second place coming out of the swim.
okay. There you go.
Maybe, or second or third, I don't remember.
Yeah, but I think I was like sixth, maybe something like that, out of the water.
Yeah, so he got off ahead, and then it sounds like you were also passing up people after the swim.
Yes, and I was chasing, and the first couple laps it was like open roads just for us, because you got road closure, which was amazing. Which that was a really cool aspect of this race. It was like road closure in downtown, big city. That's rare. And it was so fun. Going up Congress and then blazing down, and
that like the hill towards, I don't remember what street exactly it was, but there was a hill. It was like in the second half of the loop.
Yeah, after the high school track.
Yeah.
And then you come up.
Nice.
Yeah, that hill.
That was so fun.
A little, and then you gotta like change it up. You gotta change your muscle groups. You gotta sit up, stand up, and then you get the downhill after. And that was super fun. Coming down, is it Cesar Chavez?
Yeah.
And you can fly down that.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I was chasing people, and I could tell I was passing people that were ahead of me from the swim. And then I was asking people too, like, and some people don't really want to talk, especially competition, but a couple of guys were like, oh yeah, there's 2 ahead, or like there's 3 ahead or something. Or someone like, I think he's first, and I passed someone who was like killer swimmer. I think his name is Nick. Yeah. From around here. And, I remember thinking, okay, he must be first, but there was still someone ahead.
Yeah.
And starting the run, it was like, I thought I was first, maybe, and I was leaving transition, and then I was like, where's first? And some people were like, oh no. And then one woman, she's like 900 meters ahead. I was like, 900 meters. Okay. Basically a kilometer.
Yeah.
Basically half a mile. Like, dang, maybe she said 300 meters. I don't know. It came out, I remember timing it at a turnaround where you can see them. He's coming, and I pass him, and I look at my watch, and then I come back to that point where I saw him, and it was like 90 seconds or something. So I was trying to chase him down. I closed it down a little bit, but not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. And so when you first start biking, and I guess running too, you have it all to yourself, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And so then if you pass someone that you're like legitimately passing someone.
Right.
Did that get confusing when it got a little bit more congested?
On the laps? Yeah. I mean, definitely on the bike, that was super confusing. Like the first couple laps, you have a good idea, but then people start trickling in on the 4-lap course, and then you're just like, who knows where people are at. You kind of have an idea because you're like, okay, that person is fast, but also I didn't see them. I haven't seen them till now, so they might just be on their first lap. And there's a point where you're like, you realize like, oh, I got to stop thinking about this. I got to race my race. And that's like that's the mantra, I swear, of like triathlon, is race your race. You have a plan, you've been training for it. Make sure you execute all the little things that you were prepping for, and especially with nutrition, fueling, and hydration. Yeah. Especially in this heat. Because if you're off on that,
dude, I didn't have water.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. I had 2 bottles, and for an hour that's actually like twice the amount I would normally have. But I knew it was so hot, and one of my bottles was frozen I froze it the night before, and I just had this nice like melting bottle that I would, on that hill that you're talking about, every time we got to that hill, I would squirt it into the holes on my helmet to cool me down, and just try to stay cool the whole time.
Yeah.
And then drink from it too. But no water on that. It would,
Dude, I was dizzy coming out. I was in the transition, and some random lady gave me her water bottle. Like one of the ladies working there, because I was like, "Where's the next water?" And she was just like, "Here."
Did you plan that? Were you?
That was my first triathlon.
Okay.
I gave my girlfriend all my stuff.
Okay.
And I was like, "You'll just hand it off to me."
Yeah.
And then someone told her, like,
Can't do that. Yeah. That's like outside assistance, which isn't. Yeah, it's not allowed.
Not allowed. So I had nothing in the transition area.
That's tough. I mean, yeah, in this heat, I don't think it's been hotter since Memorial Day. I think that was literally the hottest day of the year so far.
And then when I got to the run, then I like overdrank because I was so thirsty.
Oh my gosh.
I chugged water.
And then you're like
my stomach
bloated.
was all like full. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's all, oh my gosh.
Downhill from there.
Dang. But you finished it.
I finished.
Yeah. That's awesome. And it was your first.
First one.
That's so cool.
Could only get better than that.
Heck yeah. I mean, yeah, like, and you realize like how many little things come into play into triathlon, 3 sports, and like just so many little details, right?
Yep.
Leading up to it, all these little pieces, you have to make sure everything's lined up. It's the micromanager's dream.
Preparing for triathlon.
Yeah.
So when did you start triathlons, and what got you into them?
My very first one was with my dad. Shout out to my dad, Norbert Wild Jr., physicist extraordinaire. He was doing them in San Diego, birthplace of triathlon. It's where I grew up, in Mission Bay, and that's where it was. Like it was a really short one. It was like a sprint one, and I think I was 16, maybe 15, and I borrowed a steel road bike, swam in like a surf wetsuit. The water was chilly, and then I remember the swim. I was dead last on the swim. I knew how to swim, but I didn't have any swimming background, and I did hold on to one of the kayaks. I had to hold on, and I was like a kid, and I was like panicking, and just, the mass start swimming in open water, whether it's a lake, ocean, whatever, with people around, there's something about it that's like, can make, even still now, like 10 years or 15, 20 years later, make me like kind of panic. We were talking about breath earlier, and that's like when you lose your breath swimming, like that's scary. And then it's a downward spiral. And you start to panic, and like coaching people and giving people advice about the swim is like, my main advice is like, manage your breathing, like get in the pool and get really comfortable breathing on both sides, which is easier said than done. But you have to be able to like be calm out there, because once you start having like short breath and breathing heavy, and starts to like hyperventilate, and you get all scared. And anyway, that's what happened to me in my first triathlon. Took probably, I don't think I did another one for a couple of years. And then college, didn't do any in college. Started getting into cycling more in college. I ran cross country in high school, and I started swimming in high school too. But college was all about riding bikes and like meeting people who were riding bikes up and down the coast of California, and joining them on a ride, from San Francisco to Santa Cruz or something. And like, that was a huge adventure. 70 miles, like that's still a big deal for sure.
Yeah.
But at the time I remember being like, this is insane, and we're going to like get a ride back somehow. And then it was like after college when I decided to like put it all together and do a local race in East Bay, east of Oakland. And then I just like kept going with it after college. And it was like just me on my own, and like piecing things together, looking things up on how to train for it, And then I like met people who had coaches, and that was like 2012 or something. And I was like, oh wow, people are serious about this. They pay monthly for coaches. I guess I should do that too. And that was probably like the best investment, actually. It's like put money into like getting advice from a professional, you know,
Mhm.
and people who know the sport. Yeah. And then I just kept going with it, moved to Hawaii, became a teacher, and the teacher life, I could talk for days about that, but like one thing about the teacher life that I did love was the structure. You can plan out your entire year, you know, in August, you know what you're going to do all the way till next June.
Mhm.
You have all the mapped out calendar of the holidays and everything. And then that works really well with the, you know, with the busy triathlete and like getting everything lined up for the year. And of course, Kona Ironman is right there. So I was like watching it and getting inspired, meeting people and meeting different teams and coaches and like learning about all the like sponsorships. And it's a lot. Triathlon's a lot because yeah, it's 3 sports plus they call nutrition the 4th sport, which is a whole other thing. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the short story of it, I guess. Just kept racing more and eventually qualified for World Championships as like a local at the Half Ironman Hawaii. And yeah, it was as a local. I mean, it's a different group of people that are racing in Hawaii versus like, you know, all the people who race at any given Ironman. And so I was able to get a slot. Whereas racing at different Ironmans around the world, I had yet to get a slot. It took me honestly like 10 years. Well, I did my first full Ironman 7 years ago. And it was this April here in Texas that I got my slot to Kona at a full distance Ironman, which was like a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like very excited. That's been my goal, like racing so many, like number 9 Ironman. And I'm like, I don't know if I can like do it. It's been 8 Ironmans. I haven't done it before.
And where was that one?
That was in the Woodlands.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that race like?
Oh man, it was great. I really liked it. Training here in Austin, we're talking about the heat, like got used to the humidity. I've gotten used to the like oppressive conditions here. And that can be wind, you know, and that can be like a random storm. But mostly the heat. And yeah, I felt pretty confident about that. Everyone was talking about how hot it was going to be, but we had cloud coverage the whole day and it was humid, but like wasn't that bad, honestly. Like I feel like Austin gets hotter. But yeah, 2.4 mile swim in a reservoir out there. Also, everyone told me how nasty the water was. It wasn't that bad. And after swimming in Lady Bird Lake, which I love Lady Bird Lake, it's a very special place in my heart, but not necessarily swimming in it.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
Yeah. So after swimming in that, I'm like, I mean, nothing's that bad compared to that. Yeah. So yeah, that swim, it was super fun. You finish like in this little canal that goes through this neighborhood and like mall area, and so all the fans are like watching right on
the swim.
Yeah, right on the water's edge, and it's just like this narrow little chute, and like everyone's on the water's edge like cheering, and you can hear like applause and cheering and while you're in the water.
That's cool. Which
is like very rare, you know. And yeah, and then yeah, the bike ride was really windy. The bike ride it's also very straight. You go on, it's like a toll road. They close off a toll road, so it's just for bikes. It's a freeway, and it's not very beautiful. In the beginning, though, when you're in the Woodlands, it actually makes sense why it's called the Woodlands. I had never been. There's lots of trees, and it's quite scenic. But then after that, you're on the highway for 80 miles total, a few hours, and yeah, it was pretty gnarly. Like there's a huge headwind, very strong headwind as you're going south. And then when you turn around, you get this really awesome tailwind blowing you back to town. And then you got to do it again. But yeah, it was super fun. Yeah, just like head down got to watch for people. Obviously, you got to be safe. I saw some crashes. I hope they're all right. But yeah, you got to like really be alert, especially in the winds. And then there's a lot of close riding. There's definitely complaints about drafting, because it's not draft legal. And that was known going into it. Everyone told me lots of people draft. Watch out for it. And then, yeah, I mean, after the ride, it was a blazing fast ride. And then after the ride, it was, time for the marathon run. And there's like 3 laps. Oh yeah, that's a good story actually. The run, I actually have a good story. So I guess to start is like, I had a different mindset going into this race. I was like, start the run slower than you want to. No matter how good you feel, turn it down. I like to race by kilometers per minute or whatever, or minutes per kilometer instead of minutes per mile, just because it ticks away faster. Like 42K is a marathon, and 5-minute pace was like not bad. It's like a 3:30 marathon, 5 minute per kilometer. And that's like an 8-minute mile. I was like, I can do 5 minutes, because that's all my marathons in Ironman, at least, have always come to that range. By the end, I'm like, I can't even hold 5-minute pace, and I'm like dying. So I was like, don't start faster than 5.
Yeah.
So of course I'm going, it's like 4:45. It's too fast. So I just started walking, and I was like, it was a very new thing for me. And that took some like very like mental strength or something, willpower, to like hold myself back, even though I was feeling so good.
Yes.
To know that like it's a long day ahead, and it was already a long day behind me. So like I'm fatigued even though I don't feel like it. So I need to like turn it down now. So I would walk, like I was counting like 20 seconds or something, and then run again, and just run comfortably. Took in lots of salt. I was always using that moment to like make sure I was like calculating the like salt dosage I've had, like a little math, time killer.
Yeah.
Crunching numbers. Like I was trying to hit 900 milligrams of salt per hour. I took a salt sweat test like a few years ago, which I should redo because it changes depending on where you're at in your life, everything. But yeah, I was like taking little salt pills.
So that salt sweat test just tells you how much salt is in your sweat, so that you know.
Yeah, you wanna like.
How do you know how much salt or how much sweat you're actually like?
The liquid volume, that actually is pretty easy to do. You can do that at home, like, or you can.
Oh, you weigh yourself?
Just weigh yourself.
Yeah.
Like weigh yourself. No clothes. Go for your run or do something hard in this heat. Time it, obviously. An hour workout would be ideal, so then you can know like per hour. And then weigh yourself, no clothes, because your clothes are gonna be drenched with sweat.
Right, they're gonna hold it.
Yeah, so you gotta get rid of that, and then then Okay. It's actually pretty simple concept.
Okay, so you have that number in your head, like 900 is what it came out to.
Yeah, in terms of salt, sodium. In terms of sodium loss, but
any other electrolytes?
I haven't measured the other electrolytes. What do we got? Like magnesium, calcium, chloride, potassium. Yeah. Haven't measured those, and it's usually the sodium that is the biggest loss. I should do a new one. And I know like Gatorade has some like really easy.
Yeah, they have the
patch
ones you just buy. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, I think it's like $15. I don't know. I think they're pretty cheap. It's easy to like, say like, oh yeah, everyone go do a sweat test, but it's like you have to like do a hard workout, and you got to like be like scientific about it. And often like my workouts, I'm like, I gotta go, and also I gotta get home, shower, and like go to work. Or
I know there's always shit going on.
Yeah,
it's hard to actually just time out. Okay, today I'm gonna figure out how much salt I lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think it's so important. I feel like everybody should do it, because what I learned was that like we all sweat so differently, and it's not even about like fitness level either. It's just like this. I feel like it's like the size of like our cells or something, like different people sweat more or sweat more sodium. It can be like thousands of milligrams and other people can be like 500 milligrams. And that's like a huge difference, right? I do like it seems to be a trend of like more electrolytes are being pushed out as like marketed towards everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The noon tabs, like the drip drop,
Liquid IV.
Yeah, exactly. Liquid IV. Like, and I feel like that one's more for everybody. It's not even like athletes only, right?
Yeah. It's like the hangover cure. That's
yeah.
Like what everyone knows it as.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I'm a big fan of the like more salt.
Yeah. Okay. So you are into your marathon part of the race.
Yeah.
Calculating your tap, and which I totally understand that. I did the same thing, and I did the Austin Marathon, and that's what I would like
thinking about,
use my brain,
like the gels, or
I would be thinking about how much liquid I was drinking, because I had measured out. I didn't know how much salt I sweat out, but I just had an idea of how much I wanted to be drinking.
Mm-hmm. Austin Marathon, and that was in February, right?
Yep.
And that's like, it's like a different world. Like February in Austin, it was cold.
That's pretty nice.
It was
a good day for running.
Yeah, perfect. I loved it. Yeah, I did the 5K that day.
Nice.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and I was.
That's the one that's just like straight up and down Congress.
Yeah, and it's so painful because it's like deceivingly steep hill for
a
whole 1.5 miles, but still.
Have you done the half or the full?
No, I haven't.
Okay, because it's that kind of like just slowly all the way up Congress, and you just go all the way to the interstate, and then you come over and come back on first.
Right, and then those downhills, man, that can like thrash your quads.
Yeah,
can be tough. But yeah, like in terms of like salt loss on that day would be different than salt loss on like a day like today.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I mean, I still kind of shoot for more salt, the better. But anyway, so calculating that out, walking, taking walk breaks, trying to keep my pace under control, and really, like tempering my run.
Yeah.
Trying to like go easy, because a marathon will never be like easy, really. It's a long day. And yeah, just like pounding the gels, going for the caffeine, especially when my mood was going low, when you're feeling like, oh my gosh, it's a 3-lap course. You got 1 lap down, dang, still 2 more to go. And like caffeine is always like yay, I'm happy again. Yeah. But also calories too. Like it's a definite mood booster, right?
Mm-hmm. Like blood sugar.
Yeah, exactly. Sugar and caffeine. So anyway, yeah, I was letting some people pass. I mean, letting them, they're passing me, whether I let them or not. But also I was definitely making some moves on the field as well. Didn't have anybody like telling me my position, but I could tell I was passing some people that were ahead of me earlier. And then it starts to get crowded again. This is a 3-lap course, so now everyone's starting to be on the run course by the time I'm on the last lap, and it's good energy. You got more fans out there. There's this area called like Hippie Hollow, which was just like people are like banging on trash cans, and it's like it's really fun, really good energy, definitely good hype up, but like really loud. And like in a marathon when you're trying to like zone 2 endurance pace, trying to like be zen about it.
Yeah,
like everyone's like,
like
go. Like as if you're like about to sprint finish, and you're like, I still have 10 miles, dude. Yeah. So like going through there, and then I got this surge, and it was like 5K to go, and I was like, I know I have this like second, third wind, whatever you want to call it. And so I started going, and I felt really good. And it was like my fastest 5K of the marathon. Passed my buddy Brett King, shout out Brett King, great guy. And we had like been planning this race together. We actually like traveled, we got Airbnb together, and we were prepping for this for a while. Really awesome dude. He's a pilot actually. And yeah, I like caught up to him and passed him, gave him a little spank and said, let's go, man. He's like, go for it. But we were about to be in the same age group too. And we were like, one of us has to get a Kona slot. If not both, one of us has to. And I'm like flying, and the wind's blowing, and it's like starting to get like race brain, where it's kind of tunnel vision, not thinking super clearly. And I'm going on this course. It's a 3-lap course, and I start to see some like things on the side of the race, people and like restaurants that I'm like, I feel like I've seen this already. I've seen this too many times. I've seen this 3 times. So I'm like, oh no, this is like 4th lap. This is not supposed to be, I'm not supposed to be on a 4th lap. I passed the split. There was a split there's a split to the finish, and then it says like laps 1, 2, 3 this way, finish this way. And I went on to the 1, 2, 3. It's not anyone else's fault but my own. You got to know the course ultimately. However, some courses and races mark that stuff better than others.
It's usually very clear.
Yeah, it wasn't very clear to me. Although all my friends, including Brett, was like, "How could you miss that? We've been waiting for this moment to make that split to the finish all day. How do you miss that?" But it was like duct tape on the ground, and it was like 1, 2, 3 this way and finish that. There was no person there, and usually at races there's someone like saying like something. But anyway, I own it. I definitely messed up. And I'm running, and I froze because I was like, oh no, I'm starting 4th lap. Wait, where was the split? How far back is it? And I look to the crowd, and there's like people cheering, cowbells, and like banging on trash cans. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm done. Where's the finish? And they're like, keep going. Like, good job, runner. Like, yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm done. They thought I was like, I don't know what they thought. They're like, what? I'm like, I've done 3 laps. Where's the finish? And then I see Chris Lieto. He's a former pro triathlete, Ironman champion. Actually, it was Chris Lieto's video on YouTube with Craig Alexander. It was like 2008 Ironman World Championship. That got me so excited about Ironman. He lives in Kona. Really great guy. He's there. And I was like, what the heck? Chris Lieto's doing here? What is he doing here? And he's like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, where's the finish? He's like, you got to go back. And then like, there's a coach out here, Natasha, NVDM coaching, huge triathlon team. Really amazing how big her squad is and successful too. And she's like, turn around now. And like, which is so awesome of them to like help me, because I was having a panic attack, like full on. I was just like frozen. They're like, turn around. It's that way. Go. And this is like the fastest 5K of my marathon. Yeah. I turn around and I see the place that I missed it, and I'm sprinting, and I see my buddy that I had passed already. Another guy I had passed already, and I'm trying to catch up to them. And then, gosh, I was really mad at myself. I was like really disappointed in myself, because like 9 hours, 5 minutes. I could have done like a 9:05. Ended up being a 9:07, which is like my best, and not something to complain about. But it could have been faster. I was 6th, the age group. I could have been 4th, maybe. Who knows? But it was a good lesson, and it was like a reminder that even when you make a mistake that you think is like irreversible, you can still like turn around. Even if you go down the wrong path, like you can still change course, backtrack, find that place that you messed up, find that fork in the road, and it's okay. And you can still do well from it, you know?
And there's something to be said about like cutting your losses. Like what that lady was telling you, like turn around and go.
Yeah.
It's like,
as
soon as you realize you're on the wrong path, just go back.
For sure.
Like there's no point in,
I've
standing and thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't overthink it. Just like, when you know you're making the wrong decision, flip it and go. And don't beat yourself up about it too. That's another lesson, right? And then another lesson was like, I mean, you can make mistakes, and you can look to other people for like what to do. But in the beginning, remember I was saying like, everyone's saying like, yeah, keep going, good job. And other people are like, oh, turn around. And there was like this cacophony of advice. And it was like just too much. And like, ultimately, I mean, Chris and Natasha were very vital to like yell at me, but still ultimately it was me who had to turn around. It was me who had to move my legs, make the decision. and go. And like, you can hear all this advice and like ask people for advice and stuff, which is useful, but still it's going to take you to do the thing, you know?
Yeah.
That was a big lesson for me for sure. Yeah. I know there's more lessons from that too.
And so that got you a slot?
And then that got me a slot anyway. Yeah. Yeah. So, and Brett too, my buddy, he got a slot. I got a slot. It was great. And it's like the North American Championship. So they do allocate more slots at these races. Often it's like you have to be first or second in your age group. But with sixth, I was still able to get a slot, which is very grateful because I would have been so sad if I missed my slot because I made a wrong turn.
Yeah, I think that is a pretty ideal mistake to make.
Yeah.
Because you get all of the learning and you don't, and it's not as costly as it could have been.
Yeah.
Like that could have happened at Kona. Like,
oh my gosh.
And that would have been so bad.
Oh my gosh. Yes. The learning. Yeah. So that reminds me of the one other thing that I was like reflecting on about this was like being present is something that I really value. I want to be present with people I'm talking to. I want them to be present with me. Like, I feel like, when you're reading a book, when you're watching a show, like really getting into it and being present is like, I love it. Mm-hmm. I'm all about it. But it was like the first time I was like, oh my gosh, like you can actually be too present sometimes, too in the moment. And I was like, and that's like race brain is like, I was so in the moment of my fastest 5K. Oh my gosh, I'm like ticking, I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, I'm going like 440s right now, like 430s. I'm going so fast. This is the best thing ever. I'm negative splitting my marathon at Ironman. I'm in the moment, every step, every breath, just douche, and just like hyper focus on that moment within a moment that you like forget the exit. You forget the turn off. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we've probably all done this driving, right? Like you're in the moment, you're listening to music, or maybe you're on a call and you're just in that. But you forget about the big picture, and like sometimes you gotta like not be so in the moment and think about this next step that's like vital to to like make that exit or make that decision. Mm-hmm. So that was a really interesting thing for me to like realize that like being super present all the time, you might actually like miss some future plans that you had.
Yeah. So what would you say you're like, what have you learned from triathlons? If you could sum it up.
Oh man. So much. Cause it's been, like a huge part of my life, huge part of like day to day. And then how I've like met people and met really awesome people in the world and here in Texas, and moving here 2 years ago. Is how I like tapped into different communities, through running, cycling, a little swimming. What have I learned from triathlon? I mean, going back to like planning things out, like being really detail oriented, really thinking about also like contingency plans, plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, in terms of like nutrition. What do you do if your bottle falls off your bike? Mm-hmm. What do you do if your gels aren't there when you get back to your shoes, when you put on your run shoes and you have your gels there, now they're gone. Like always having these plans to like know what you're going to do. Or like, if I get a flat, can I fix it? If I can't fix it, what am I going to do? What are the like options in the race? If, I tried plan A, B, and C, then sometimes there's like assistance, I really like that aspect of triathlon, the like kind of like that, like survivalist is a bit extreme to apply to triathlon, but if I were to go on a big backpacking trip, it's been a while, but it's kind of similar, lining up all the little gear that you need, all the little things to make it comfortable and fun, but also like efficient and light. So yeah, I guess hyper preparation as like a skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think yeah, I mean, I learned a lot, but that's one thing.
Where do you find willpower? So let me focus in on like willpower for either training. So like you have a hard day of training. Where do you get the willpower to go into that and do it all?
Mm-hmm.
And then let's say like a race day. So the actual performance.
Yeah. Super different, I would say. And it's changed a lot for me. Lately, I'd say in the past couple months, I think that's the second time my voice cracked. You know?
We welcome it.
Yeah, last couple months, it's changed a bit. Like I've been so regimented in terms of like having a program and calendar, and I'm a coach as well. So like I like to like also, you know, promote that for my athletes. Like have your 16-week plan, have that race that's in the winter that is like something that you're looking forward to all the way in the spring, you know? Mm-hmm. I've had that in my life for the past 10 years. I've always, whether it hasn't always been the same coach, not always a coach either. But now, yeah, just in the past few months, really tapping into these different clubs and groups in Austin. There's so many. There's too many. I mean, there's like enough to fill your entire calendar with just like club runs and like group rides. Swimming, there's a few masters programs that I haven't tapped into. But with the runs and the rides, it's crazy. And like, that's the main thing I've changed is like, I want to make this Monday practice with this team I just joined, Violet Crown. And we like ride at Veloway on Mondays. And then Tuesday mornings, there's another group ride in the morning. There's tons. And there's like the Tuesday teardown, which is like a hard hilly ride at night. And then Wednesday is like rest day because Thursday is the driveway crit racing. And that's something I just tapped into like last month. Super fun. Like very different from triathlon. Road racing, pack racing, high speed, high risk. But like there's a total community around it. And that's the main thing that I like have been shifting towards and like leaning more into is the communities and meeting people. And like, yeah, getting to know different riders and athletes and runners. And then, oh my gosh, Saturday is Purple Dragons. Have you heard of them? It's this run group that like organically formed from some fast friends who from different like clubs like Bat City and the Raw run group, which I also ran with, and that's a Tuesday night thing too. And other groups around Austin, and they're just friends, and they like put up like a purple square on Instagram and then started calling it Purple Dragons. I don't know the history. Definitely interview them about that, but they're a really fun group. Mixed bag of fast people. And yeah, it's like Saturday mornings, and it's usually like 12 to 16 miles, sub 7 minute pace. And like and there's like Olympic trialists who are running there and really fast people. And so it's very humbling. And anyway,
how big is it? The group?
I mean, I swear last time it must have been like, well, last time was smaller, but 2 or 3 weekends ago, it felt like 80 people. And
so how does that work as a group? Is it just kind of spread out throughout the run?
Yeah. And not everyone's running sub 7. I mean, some of the folks are running sub 6, but then you got other people who are running around the 8 minute pace too. And, which is not easy with some of these hills at all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it spreads out and it kind of naturally spreads into different groups. The front, and then there's like the front, the middle, the back, and just like water stops on the way too. And then the whole thing too is like meeting for tacos after. Mm-hmm. And there's that back to that like social community aspect.
Yeah.
And like really connecting, you know, and like getting to know each other and not being totally one-dimensional about like sport,
Right.
but having more to it, you know, forming bonds. And this is the longest answer to your question about willpower and motivation, but that's the main thing for me, is like I want to go be around like-minded people who are also motivated for whatever reason. We all have our own stories, right? And like, yeah, just like really getting to know the communities here in Austin. I still feel like the new guy, even though it's been almost 2 years. But I'm like finding out like, yeah, these run clubs or group rides, there's people, they just moved here last month and it's like their first time meeting people. And then now I'm like, oh yeah, like welcome, you know, and I'm like welcoming people, and it's like, wait, I guess I'm not the new guy anymore. So then there's a new motivation, you know, to make other people feel welcome and like to not be exclusive. There is a natural filtering though, in terms of like speed and ability, that's just gonna be a part of it, because like I want to like get better.
Yeah.
I want to see my true potential in terms of riding and running, not as much, but still like I do think I have some more room to grow. I'm just turned 37 a few days ago, so I'm kind of like maybe near that peak, definitely around that peak plateau area, which is fine. But yeah, that's one big motivation too, is like I still think I have some more potential in terms of speed and fitness. And cycling especially though is like so much tactics and like strategies and like timing. So it's not just about being fit and strong. It's like, how do you use it? When do you use it? Like, how can you take this turn in a way that's most efficient? Lots to say about cycling, but yeah, long story short, what's the motivation? Community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a big part of willpower that I've been realizing is like environment is so important. And to go off what you're saying, like having people around you who are like doing the same thing just naturally just puts you in like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing. And it makes that like block of like forcing yourself to do it so much lesser, so much easier.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas like when you have to get up on your own and go to like an early morning run.
And yeah, and that's for sure.
Yeah.
Early morning swim or early morning ride, like inside too during the winter, or like even if it's not the winter, a lot of, especially triathletes I know of, do a lot of solo training because it's so like you have to put in so much time in triathlon.
Yeah.
That like, and if you have a full-time job, like you have to fit it in where you can. And there's something very respectable about that. And that's something I was doing for so long, but also kind of inherently like a little lonely too. And you're that like on your own, like, you know, soul searching journey solo. Maybe you've got, if you're training inside, you've got your monitors and screens so you can watch your shows or whatever, listen to your podcasts. Definitely did a lot of podcast listening, indoor riding. And yeah, like that motivation, that willpower, that's like to do that. I think it just was like forming those habits and then like locking in, being like, you know, like when you like lock in a good week of like hitting those early morning workouts, you're like, that felt great and like successful. I feel like I just like really achieved something. Like, let's do that again, you know? And then it like also you can like line up your whole day, right? Like, you know, you got your workout in and you've got your like morning routine, whether you're doing like fasting or not, or whether you're having a huge feast and that's your routine. It feels good to like keep it going, right? I think that was my main willpower motivation before I was like really into like doing group rides and group runs. It was like getting into that rhythm.
Yeah. So I had someone on who was like, she coaches on how to like basically teach willpower. So like you can imagine like
That's
you
cool.
could have like a personal trainer
Mhm.
and they teach you everything, but then you don't do any of it.
Mm,
So it's like she helps the trainers actually get their clients to do the thing.
right.
So it's basically willpower coaching.
For sure.
And a big part of it was, or one thing she said that stood out to me was that people who have the most willpower actually use it the least. And that's because they set up these things. So what you're talking about is like setting up those like neural pathways where like, this is just what I do. I'm so much in the routine that like those grooves are built for me. I don't like think about it. That's not like if you're in a good cycle of doing your morning workout,
Yeah.
doing all that, you're not waking up and like running into a wall of friction.
Right.
Versus if it's like, you're like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to go do a workout, and you never do it. Like that's not a normal thing for you. You wake up and you're like, I don't know if I want to do this. It's not built in already. And so then that's where you like either have to brute force it or, not do it.
Totally.
So a big part of having willpower is actually just making it as easy as possible and building those routines, getting yourself to a point where this is just what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. You said like having those neural pathways where you're not even really thinking about it. That's kind of what was like hard for me to even think about how I was going to answer when we like were communicating earlier about the whole concept of willpower. I was thinking that like, I don't really even think about it. It's just wake up and go. And it's like my alarm went off. Like I'm not even like conscious. I'm just making the coffee, getting my helmet on or putting my run shoes on. Is like, okay. And then a lot of it is like that prep the night before too.
Yeah.
Or making things really easy in the morning to like, all right, grab my water bottle, keys, wallet, go. And then like you're doing the workout and then you're starting to like wake up and you're like, oh, cool. I'm already like 30 minutes in.
Yes. I used to do early morning runs. Like I would do one long run a week.
Nice.
And I definitely had that multiple times where I'd wake up and be like, oh, like I'm 2 miles into a run right now.
Yeah.
And it legitimately felt like I'd been like almost asleep or in some weird restful state for the first 2 miles. But yeah, just eliminating the decision is where willpower is needed. The decision of like, should I do this or should I not? So if you can eliminate that and just have it be like a flow of like, this is just what I'm doing. Yeah. Have everything ready and you just go.
Totally. I mean, yeah, like going back to the marathon at Ironman Texas, it was a weird, like mental strength, almost like a courage I needed to walk in the beginning because it was so unintuitive. And it was like, I was really like forcing myself to do something different. Especially just the feeling of like, no, I feel like I have fuel. I feel like I'm like energized. Mile one, I know mile one is nothing. I should be running.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, let's change it up. Cause the past few times it hasn't worked out. Let's try something new and like walk a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's that, especially like, alpha type A personality of like, no, I'm good. Like I'm going to do this. And just being like, no, control it.
Yeah. So I did a marathon. My first marathon was last year and I trained and everything for it. And I had that thing set in my brain, which was like, I need to run the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like never stop.
Right.
And I think I made it to like 22 and then I walked and then I couldn't start running again. Like my legs were like they wouldn't. They were like spasming. Yeah, seizing.
Oh my gosh.
And so I had to walk the rest.
That can be so painful.
And then this year I did the Austin Marathon and I took on a new technique, which is kind of similar, which is I would walk every mile and just like make sure I was getting enough water, eat every 6 miles or so. And I didn't train for this marathon and I beat my time.
Wow.
From the first one. So it was like,
yeah,
taking that step back and being like, it's okay to walk. It's like, it's better in the long run.
For sure.
I could totally understand that.
And the calorie intake too. Like, so it's so, I feel like it's understated how important it is in endurance events. I mean, there's plenty of people who are great at the like keto and low calorie, like almost like fasting and doing long distance stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes a lot of training and a whole nother level of intention to be good at that. I'm a big fan of lots of carbs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what I do, right? Is like, I'm just burning fuel all the time.
Yeah.
And that actually is another answer to like what motivates me is like, I love food. And I love good food. And I love the ritual of cooking. I love the like routines of, like whatever it may be. Even just simply like slicing up strawberries and bananas and putting them in my cereal. Like even that is like, there's some comfort in that because it like taps into like my childhood and like, or like making an awesome steak at night, you know, and like pasta and just all these things like around food. Shout out to Whole Foods. I work there. Like, yeah, it's that like, well, if you're going to eat so much food, you probably want to like use the calories.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to use all these calories, I should probably eat some good food. It's a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, it works out. Do you spend a lot of time, or I shouldn't say do you, but have you spent time thinking about like the quality of food you're putting in your body?
Yeah.
How much focus goes on that?
For sure. I try not to be too dogmatic as I have been in the past. There's been times where I've done veganism, and then just like plant forward, you know, and trying to do as much plant-based stuff as possible. Tried keto for like 3 months. Mm-hmm. I tried to give it like a solid go, which I've heard even 3 months is actually not enough time to really tap into the ketosis, but like, gosh, that was tough. That was really
I feel tough. Like every keto person has that like excuse to like, you just didn't do it long enough.
I know, that's true. I know, right? Oh yeah, 3 months is not long enough. 6 months, not long enough. Yeah, that was, and I was trying to do like half Ironmans. And like, I remember running a 10K. One of the craziest things I tried was, it was like from Japan, and it's my buddy Billy Barnett. He's actually in Born to Run. Billy Bonehead Barnett. He was a lifeguard.
Okay.
If you read that, he's a great character in that book. And he's like, I only said the bonehead part because that's in the book. I've never actually heard anybody call him that, but he was really, really talented athlete, endurance runner, and just really good guy. He lived in Hawaii. He gave me this, I'll never forget this. He gave me a gel pack that was wasp venom from like Japan. I couldn't read any of it. And he's like, it's got a lot of ketones in it or something. I was like, whatever you say, Billy. And like, that's all I had. And like for breakfast was like avocado, cottage cheese, or no, avocado, cream cheese, eggs, bacon. Like, so gnarly. Mm-hmm. And I completely bonked on that race, and I thought I was going to throw up. It was a 10K run. It was anyway, quality of food. Yeah. So there's been times where I've really thought about it. Definitely loved the like all the Vega stuff, vegan products and like supplements, and now I'm just all like, I mean, I always have been really into like whole foods, non-capitalized whole foods, right? Like yes. Actual food, right? Mm-hmm. And eating real stuff. And I mean, farmers markets, haven't been to one in a while. I want to go back. It's like I work at Whole Foods, so I'm like getting a lot of organic, fresh stuff as is. But yeah, that's like my main thing is like eat as much real food as possible. Often when you're racing or high intensity stuff, you don't want to have actual real food. You don't want kale on your run. So that's when I'll be having like gels and trying to get the like, one thing I really like is this like organic Rice Krispie treat. I think it's called like Good Treats. I don't remember the name of the brand, but I like it because it's very simple. You can like read all the ingredients, you know, all the stuff in there, rice, some sugar. And it's like that quick access carb.
Mm-hmm.
Really easy to digest, and it's got that like nostalgic feel of like a Rice Krispie treat. Anybody listening to this who rides with me though will know that I do like my Red Bulls on the rides.
You do the full sugar ones then?
Yeah, I do the full sugar ones. I do. And I accidentally got a sugar-free one the other day. I was slower. No, I mean, I'm definitely not someone who's like drinking that stuff normally, but on a hot ride, a cold soda, caffeinated sugary beverage is so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do like to add like protein, collagen supplements to like a recovery smoothie after big training days.
Yeah.
But I've been like an oatmeal guy every morning for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
Maybe not like religiously, but like definitely a majority of my morning meals are oatmeal.
Just oatmeal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because you'll see people who will like go the vegan route, get super healthy, or they'll like, you'll see like the complete opposite, like the carnivore route, they get super healthy. Yeah. I think it's just the processed foods. Like that's the thing that they cut those out.
Yeah. And then the intentionality. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's why I respect all of these kind of diets, or even if it's just a fad or whatever, but like it's a moment where people are like, I want to be intentional with what I'm putting in my body.
Yeah.
And think about it. Read the label, and like look at their watch and be like, well, maybe I don't need the slice of pizza at 10 p.m. Mm-hmm. It's just like a fleeting thought, right?
Yeah.
Or even like, I mean, alcohol. That's a whole nother topic. But like oftentimes for me, I just want to crack open a cold one with the boys. Not necessarily a beer. Maybe I just want to like hold something cold and hear that sound, and then it's just like a Rambler,
Yeah.
Or it's just a sparkling water, and that's actually all I really wanted. And that like social aspect of like having something in your hand, right? But it's actually not really the alcohol that I want. That's been an interesting like journey too, where I like cut back from all drinks, especially leading up to a race. Be like, I'm not gonna have anything for a month. And then other times I'm like, have a glass of wine before a really hard ride, and I end up riding really well. And it's like, well, maybe it's not actually that bad. I'm still kind of figuring it out, to be honest.
Yeah. What has that path been like? So this is around alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because like we're talking about food and like what we put in our bodies, right? It's like, mm-hmm. I can't help but think about that, right? Because that's such a prominent thing, especially in Austin too, right? Like beer drinking, beer gardens. There's so many cool venues and like different bars, and like, and then these run clubs and like group rides afterwards. Often it's like they'll have beers, and like starting and finishing at a brewery or something. And yeah, it's been interesting. Like I really don't have like, here's how I do it. I'm still kind of like just going by feel. And if there is a race coming up, I will definitely be like, I'm not going to have drinks for a week or something. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a month. Sometimes I'll like really want to pull back. But yeah, I think like one beer after a group run or group ride with people is probably my sweet spot. I feel like, because that way you get the like the communal aspect too of like, especially if it's like a pitcher, mm-hmm. someone has a pitcher and pour you a glass, and there's this like communal aspect of like sharing, breaking bread, yep. And like, it doesn't have to be that way. And like, again, you can have your Rambler, you can have your non-alcoholic beer, which I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
That is like,
Benny's.
I really like that trend too. The non-alcoholic beer like is like growing so much. It's actually like, I think the biggest growing, the fastest growing beverage in like the alcohol section is the non-alcoholic beer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like skyrocketing. You see all these big brands doing it now too, right?
Yeah.
And And that does, I feel like that satisfies, like checks off all the boxes of like why we want to have a drink. Just that whole, the ritualistic, the taste is there. Everything other than the alcohol. And it's like, yeah, and the crazy thing too is like, I just heard a podcast about alcohol. I think it was like New York Times, like the Daily or something. And they were like, the verdict's still out. Like whether it's like good or bad. And it's such a generalization.
Yeah.
I do think it's pretty clear that it's an inflammatory. That's not like, I don't think there's any debate about that.
Mm-hmm.
So like feeling inflamed doesn't feel very good. So you could say like it's bad for you, but there's also a lot worse things could be putting in our body, right?
It definitely depends like how you're using it.
Mm-hmm. The volume, the
like
frequency.
If it is one drink, if it's one beer after a run, like, yes, that's not.
Yeah.
I don't think the harm that could even do is like really worth mentioning, especially if you're getting that social benefit, because that's also like super important.
Right. And then it's like, and I did this once with my buddy golfing who likes to drink, and I gave him a non-alcoholic beer in a koozie and didn't tell him. And like I told him later, and he was like, he had no idea. He had no clue. And he was, act like, that like placebo effect of like, oh, like loosening up.
I've heard that a lot of people actually have experienced that with NA beer. They'll like feel almost like they're getting drunk, but
it's amazing.
No alcohol.
I think it's so cool. So I don't know. It would be interesting if like the social norm switched to being like, yeah, I got a pitcher non-alcoholic beer, like let's all share around. Like would everyone be like, oh yeah, cheers, and like having the same amount of social lubricant? I don't know. Probably not. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think like overall it's not I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. It's like, it's also so dependent on the person too, right? And like different risks of like different health risks in your family and in your like DNA, right? Like, and different like addiction potentials, and like for some people one glass is really not a good idea, like especially if they've going sober. And like I got a lot of respect for people who are like so like in the like sober world, and it takes a lot of willpower. Talk about willpower, especially like you're trying to meet new friends and like socialize without alcohol. Like that takes willpower, and I got a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, I don't drink at all.
Okay.
Where I'm at.
Cool.
I feel like I'm almost like a pre-alcoholic. Like I could easily be an alcoholic if I let myself. But
like 100% sober.
100% sober.
Okay. And I started hearing this term lately, sober curious. Have you heard that? I think it's a really cool phrase, because it's like not necessarily committing all the way to being sober, but being like leaning towards that, like kind of that like plant forward diet where you're like, most of the time I'm going to eat just plants. If I have to, I'll have like some meat product because it's the only thing there. Whereas like sober curious, I think is similar. It's like having sparkling water all the time instead, or like, going to the bar and getting non-alcoholic. But not being like, I can't have a drop or else I lose the label. Right. I don't know. I feel like it's cool because it's a different, it can like attract a different group of people who were like, I don't want to be labeled as like sober, so I'm going to drink. But then they're like, well, I don't really want to drink that much either. Yeah.
There is a weird thing that I experienced before I like was just like, I don't drink, because I kind of had to just say that because before that I would there were a few times I can remember where I would go out with friends and I was like, I don't want to drink today, and then that was like weird. Like they'd be like, why aren't you drinking? Like, come on, dude. And so there was that kind of weirdness of like, why isn't Will drinking?
Right.
Versus when I could just say like, I don't drink. It like, I don't know, it made it easier.
Yeah, totally. If you can just be like, I don't drink, it's like, oh yeah, that's like his thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's just no questions anymore, right? Yeah. It's so interesting. It's tricky to navigate when you really dive into it.
Yeah. The something I heard was alcohol is the one drug where if you don't do it, people assume you have a problem.
That's so funny. Wow.
Yeah.
That is so wow. Yeah, I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's very interesting.
Because yeah, I mean, people would be like, what's wrong with him? And I think it stems from self-consciousness, of self-reflection, of being like, maybe I have a drinking problem, and then being like, no, I don't have a drinking problem. That person who's sober probably has the problem.
There's kind of like an there's an agreement when you go out that's like, we're all doing this thing, and like you were saying, alcohol it's unclear, but like binge drinking, I don't think that's not healthy for anybody.
Yeah, I think we can all agree there for sure.
But there is like an agreement. We're all going to go out. Everyone's going to get shit faced, but like, it's okay. We're all in on it. But then one person comes in who's not drinking. They're like, whoa, dude. Like now we all have to kind of look at ourselves and see what we're doing.
That's it for sure. It's that like, oh no, I need to like check myself. And a lot of people don't want to do that. It can be scary to like check yourself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like mob mentality, like groupthink. Mm-hmm. And then when you have that like outlier, it's like, oh wait, we're all just doing this because we're all just doing this.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why we're doing this. Yeah, no, I mean, that I think, there's such a strong connection with like sobriety and willpower. Those two things like go hand in hand. I feel like, I don't know, it depends where you're at, but I would say for most people, it takes willpower to like go completely sober. Mm-hmm. Especially in our age, especially in this area. I mean, there's a lot of in this area, America, and Europe. But
yeah. Luckily, Austin is kind of like, there is the drinking culture, but that's not everything.
It's not everything.
There's so much else.
And and like all these groups, like we're not having drinks before, so you can do all these awesome activities and then just be like, I'm going home, or like, I'm not going to go get wasted with y'all. But yeah, definitely. It's not everything here for sure.
One thing I kind of reflected on this after quitting drinking, which is the first drink is actually like, it's always the best.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I would have a drink. It would start being a little fun. Like after that first, you start noticing the effects. Mm-hmm. And then I would be chasing the rest of the night.
For sure.
Trying to drink more and more, but like never really getting that.
Kind of like just snowballing down a hill.
Yeah.
And trying to relive that moment of like the first moment when you're going down the hill.
That little buzz going.
You're like, ooh, this is fun. I'm going down a little hill. But then you're just like,
oh, get that. Let me find
that. And then,
again.
I mean, then you like, there's a whole term of like getting the spins, right? You're like spinning out of control and like dizzy. And yeah, no, it's so true. It's like chasing it and it's just getting worse because you're getting actually drunk now. And that's not the first thing you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, so I want to talk about your teaching high school math. So what did you learn about motivation from doing that? Either like in your students or yourself or anywhere.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It takes so much motivation to like do math problems. I feel like as a high schooler, right? Mm-hmm. Like
I was thinking about that at one point where I was like, a math teacher has the hardest job because you have to convince people who do not want to be doing this to learn something that they don't give a shit about.
Yeah. And they're only doing it. They're only there because they're required by law to be in the classroom. It'd be one thing to be a professor or lecturer at a university where they're paying to be there. Mm-hmm. They want to be there. They want to get the credit. They might be begrudgingly doing so, but they put in some money and they want to be there. Whereas, public school, high school, middle school, they have to be there. And I mean, some students you could tell are motivated by the prospect of college, prospect of high-paying job. Also motivated by being in that crowd of successful students, by also that like little competitiveness that you could see obviously in school sports and like athletes. And I mean, actually, yeah, that there's one like intersection there for sure. I was the math league advisor.
Oh, nice.
We had a math league, and that was like this interscholastic, competition every month. And we'd all go to different schools. All the schools would come together at one school. And
I did something similar in 11th and 12th grade.
Right. And it's just, yeah, like just like gamifying things, right? And just like making it like something you can win or lose. And it's just fun to like play games, right? And so then you have competition aspect. And that was motivating for students for sure. I mean, test scores, rankings, right? You can see that. That's all good. And like to explain why that happens or how that happens, I think is mostly due to kids who are coming from families who have already done that in the past. So the student sees that role model or sees that, that journey of their family happening and having brought them success. You also have the students who are like wanting to break that, maybe like be the first generation to go to college. And that's a really like, inspiring goal to try to attain, to be that first generation student. And then you've got like the students who you could see like a different way of looking at the world is happening for them, a different way of approaching who they want to be, like their own identity, and thinking like, do I want to be that like the cool kid and like the goofball and the like the funny one, or the one who's like good at football, and that's my identity? Or do I want to also like add on this other thing? Or do I want to like switch it and like, yeah, like be the kid who's like actually good at math and you didn't think I was because you thought I was just like a jock, or you thought I didn't know anything. Like you see that shift, and that can be like their main motivation. I mean, and then there's just like the students who want to, get the praise and like get motivated by like, yeah, getting pat on the back, getting the high five, getting the like sticker on their homework that says they got 100%, and you only get a sticker if you get 100%. Little things like that. But definitely positive reinforcement was more effective than negative, punishment, right? In the classroom, especially in high school. But it's tricky because in high school, it's like, is it cool to get that sticker? Do you want to like show how happy you are?
Yeah.
Getting that little stamp that says like, great job from Mr. Wild. It's like, it's dorky. I don't care about that, but you can tell like they like it. Yeah. I mean, and it's hard too with math, like, cause it's such a like notoriously hated subject.
Yeah.
And it's almost like cool to not like it, cause like you hear other people saying it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a whole topic in education, right? Of like reinforcing these like negative perceptions of certain topics, or like how we learn things in schooling. And then like you hear it coming from adults too, being like, oh, I'm not a math person, as if it were an inherent built-in trait that like you're born with the ability to be good at math or bad at it. And I've come to believe that that's not true. That like going back to like teaching willpower, it's like learning how to learn, learning how to be gritty, learning how to try hard even when you think you're failing and you want to give up. And it's the easy way to go. And you have all this like backup, reinforcements of saying that like, it's okay. Like, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at math. I was never good at math. You got all these people saying that. And as like a student who's trying to form their opinion about who they are and how they can learn things. And they're like, well, I like those people and they're not good at math. So maybe I'm not good at math either. And then they kind of just like close the door. And it's unfortunate because sometimes it's just like, you just have to like try more and practice more. I feel like math especially is like one of those skills that's just takes practice. You have to do the problem sets. You got to like, I'm not saying like worksheets and repeated problem sets is the only way to do it, but like it does take repetition.
You have to like sit with the concepts.
Yeah.
It's not like a lot of it is like thinking just a different way, and you have to like have a lot of exposure.
And you have to like fail, right? And you have to be like, make mistakes and be okay with it and not let it like shut you down. You kind of have to like be emotionless about it in a way and be like, oh, well, I like messed up. Let's try again. Forgot his name, but there's this book by Trevor something called It Takes What It Takes. And it's about like being totally neutral, and like it's like and like sports psychology of just be neutral. Like you have to remove your emotions from those times where you messed up, and like failing forward, like make your mistake and just move on, and it's okay. Don't be hard on yourself. Just try again. And with math is like, gosh, it's so much like that because it's like a sport and like your brain is a muscle and you have to train it. You have to go to practice, you know?
Yeah.
You have to like do the work. So yeah, I mean, kids to like get kids motivated, you do need like something down the road for them to see as like a shining star to look towards, right? A light at the end of the tunnel. For most, I would say for most students. But for me, it had always been like, it's just fun to like solve a puzzle, right? I feel like a lot of people can get behind that idea of like solving a little crossword, or like when you make that solution and you get it, it feels good. So like, just let's do it again with a new problem. Here's a different problem. Let's try to do it again. Which is funny though, is like, I don't really like Sudoku, but I think a lot of people do like Sudoku that might not even say they like math, but it's very mathy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much of like a logic puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about math is there's like so many, it's such a huge array of different kinds of problems and thinking and logic, and like to say like, oh, I don't like math. You're saying a lot. There's a lot of things you don't like if you say you don't like math.
Yeah.
Because so many things are math.
Did you have a favorite topic in math? Because I know you taught various levels.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
I mean, calculus. Love calculus. It's just like, it's taking all of the pieces, all these little skills that we learned from other topics and putting them all together.
Yeah.
Right. And so much of it is just algebra. It's just like good old fashioned freshman algebra, y equals mx plus b, and just using that in different ways. And I did like trigonometry was always fun to teach as well, because you get to talk about like sound waves and like the shape of things, and like getting into the cool looking smooth graphs that like you can do with trig functions, where it becomes more of an art. And then you can really tap into that like artistic creative side of people that like, they want to get into graphic arts and video games, and they want to like learn how to make music or whatever. And like all of that behind that is like all these sine waves. And then you can like maybe get their attention or hold on to their attention for a little bit.
Pull them in somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was always just kind of reinforced like, oh, you're good at math.
Yeah.
And I think I got on the other end of that, which was, and then a lot of other people would be like, oh, I'm just bad at math. You're good at math.
But yeah, you're good.
But so I was pretty far ahead in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when my friends got to calculus and I was like, oh shit, dude, like this can be so much fun. Yeah, I always loved calc.
So you mean like it's gonna be so much fun when you're all there together?
When I would see them
Yeah.
with like their math homework and I'd be like, oh, you're on calc. Like this is fun. You got derivatives.
Oh, because you were ahead of them.
Because I had already seen this years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you're like, oh, derivatives. Yeah, totally. That like little excitement.
Yeah.
It's like being in on like an inside joke or something. It's not a joke, but
And
just being
they're getting in on it now. Yep.
Yeah. And you're like, you're gonna like see how cool it is and how everything like makes sense now. Yeah, I know. It's a special it's a special joy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that side of things, like being told you're good at math, can then actually be like also have a negative effect too for students and people who are like, well, I've got like all these other things that I want to pursue too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to like join the tennis team, and I'm also trying to like write this essay and like get the scholarship, but like I have to be the one who's good at math, so I have to do well on this test because I'm the one who's good at math. It can be so much pressure.
Yeah,
so much pressure on students these days. Like, and I've been out of the teaching game now since COVID, so that's 2020. It was 2021, I think was my last year. So that's actually not that long ago. 2020?
3 years?
Yeah.
4 years?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So it definitely has changed. I know that for sure in terms of remote teaching and remote learning, hopefully for the best. And then, I mean, AI, ChatGPT, that wasn't even a thing when I was teaching, not even 4 years ago. And now that's a whole thing. Like, salute to all the teachers and all the students out there making it work now. Yeah, I just hope that like, for me, like my main thing was like, I want to promote a joy of learning, like for the sake of learning. And that is hard to, it's a hard pill to swallow. It's like, why should I like math? Because it's fun. Like it's fun to learn. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow for some people, especially when you've got other life situations. Especially if you're like a young student who's trying to be almost the head of the household when both parents are working and they're the eldest and they have to make sure all the kids have their lunch taken care of. I mean, it's so different across different income levels, you know? But anyway, could talk about teaching for a while.
Yeah. So you talked about having like a light at the end of the tunnel. What does your dream life look like? If you have already a preconceived picture of that, or, you know, what would it look like?
Wow.
And what is missing from it today?
Dream life. Dang. That's a big one. That's a big question, man. I mean, there's times where I'm like having a house, having a family, starting a family, having a yard, having a garden, having a big camper van, having chickens, having all the bikes, mountain bikes, road bikes, all the bikes. That's appealing to me, for sure. But there's other times where I'm like, there's still so much of the world I want to see. And like all of those things require like being in a place for a while. And so there's times where I'm also like, well, ideal life could be like working remote and traveling the world I mean, still probably with bikes.
Bikes are the one overlap.
Definitely bikes are involved in this dream life. All of the bikes. Yeah, I mean, being in a place where community is there, and that I'm a part of the community, and that I'm contributing in a like productive, healthy way that's making other people's lives better. I want to be in a place too where I can like be volunteering more, working in a capacity where I'm like, whether it's like, you know, an environmental cause or like trying to help out with homelessness or like, yeah, I mean, even just like, I feel like I need to like dedicate more time to like community service, honestly. And that's like something I should be doing more. Coming from like being a teacher where I feel like I was like in a service capacity, service role to the community. Now not, I'm like, wait, that was a big part of myself. So yeah. And that, I mean, I just moved into a new apartment. So I'm still moving in. I feel like I'm like settling in this new place. I just need to like dedicate more time to that. But yeah, dream life, man. Still figuring it out. I don't know. It's a big question. I think starting a family though is like a big part of that eventually. And it could be sooner than later.
Yeah. Do you notice overlaps in like, because I like this question because someone asked me it a while ago and I realized that there isn't really anything fundamentally missing from my life. Like, yes, everything can get better. And like part of my dream life is that I'm also on that. I'm like moving towards something. But yeah, just like realizing like, okay, I kind of do have a dream life. And I can, yeah, a big part of it is just how I see my life and how I feel throughout it. And a big piece of it, a big thing for me is like the feeling of freedom. I think that's one thing I would like to have is freedom to do whatever I want to do. So that's something I'm moving towards.
That is so well said though. Like, and like good to remember that like, yeah, things could always be better, but also where we're at now has taken how many years of like figuring things out to be in this place. I mean, to be able to just be like, yeah, I can come over on a Sunday afternoon, no problem. Like stoked to, right? And like not be like stressed about that. And like that's a great place to be in. And to like be able to talk to you about bike rides and stories from my past, like it's a great place to be in. So maybe that's why I was like having a hard time answering that actually, is because like things are pretty good.
Yeah.
And like if we're not living the dream, our own dream, then like why is that? You know, what's holding us back? And yeah, I mean, right now it's pretty dreamy, definitely. To be like, I mean, yeah, to be like dedicating so much time to like sport is a pretty awesome luxury, a pretty great place to be. And yeah, like being able to like jump into different groups and meet people. I feel like I made it pretty obvious that like community is important, right? And like I am tapping into community. So yeah. I mean, yeah, so I see a therapist like about every other week, once a month, maybe sometimes twice. And last time we talked, she left me with a question. And she said, what's one thing you can do today to bring joy to your life? that you can actually go do. And I was like, go watch the sunset. Just like actually watch it, you know, and like be for a minute. And she's like, you should do that today. And then I did. And it was like so simple, like such simple advice and such a simple question. And like, but it did take some like intention, you know, to like get myself to go do that. But yeah, it was like a moment where I was like, oh yeah, like this is like doing what I'm doing. This is kind of the dream, you know? Eventually being with a life partner, doing, you know, watching the sunset with a life partner is something that I would want in this dream.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also really important to be like okay, or not just okay, but to be like very happy with watching the sunset alone too.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's super important.
Yeah.
For having a relationship is that you are a full unit on your own. You're fulfilled. This other person just adds to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another question I sometimes ask is like what are the like high ROI things you do that you don't really realize before? Like for me, it's walking my dog. Like there are days where I'm like, oh, it's too busy. I don't have time to go walk her. And then I'll be like, no, let me just go do it. And I'll get like halfway around the block and I'm like, this is so nice.
Yeah.
It's like peaceful. I'm like super, I don't have my phone. I'm super present. I'm just out here with her. Do you have anything else like that? Like your sunset? Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. It's like how uncommon it is to, I mean, it sounds kind of boring, but like making a meal and then eating it without any screens or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not reading anything. You're not, I mean, maybe listening to some light music or something in the background, like, but just like being very present with the food and like appreciating it. And I've done that. I rarely do that. You know, it's often like, oh, I'm gonna put on a show, or like I need to catch up on the Tour de France, or like, you know, whatever it is. Or definitely like I'm gonna be on my phone eating, right? Or reading, like, oh, here's a good chance to read my book. But just to like sit with your food and like, and just, that's the activity.
Yeah.
To eat it. And like, I want to do that more too, because it has been, like, I'm like, well, this is like different. We don't do it that much.
Mm-hmm.
We're so like trained to be multitasking, productive individuals. And we all have so much going on. We all know that we need to like take care of this and that. And there's like all these adult things we got to do. And we're like, oh, you know, got to handle my bills or whatever while I'm like eating my delicious meal. But it's like, and then all of a sudden your meal's done. And you didn't even like really enjoy it.
Didn't enjoy it. That's something I've been kind of realizing is there's so many things that are really just distractions. It's like I'll like be checking my email or checking something that's like I'm not looking for anything. There's nothing I'm waiting for, and there's nothing like actionable. There's nothing I need to be doing.
Right.
I'm just waiting for something. I'm looking for some distraction. And there's a weird resistance to like putting the phone away. Mm-hmm. But then as soon as I start eating, I'm like, this is actually very enjoyable. Like that presence is so nice once you get into it. But sometimes there is like a weird resistance.
For sure. Absolutely.
To that first.
Totally. I mean, we can be like victims to our own, you know, intelligence, our own like productivity, and our own like efficiency models that we have in our head, where you want to get all these things done and it feels good to be productive, but then you miss out on some like very like simple joys in life, I think. There she is. Yeah, I mean, actually, I just experienced something similar, but I'm going to admit, it wasn't super enjoyable. It was actually like kind of uncomfortable, but I want to like dissect it more and like try it again. But it was like, I was waiting to meet someone at a cafe, and I thought I'm here early, rare for me. So you're sitting there waiting. What do? Like pull out your phone. Who knows what you're checking, but you just pull out your phone.
Something, yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to pull out my phone. I'm just going to sit here patiently waiting. And I'm not going to order anything either because I want to wait for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'm like, felt like an alien or something. I was like, I'm just sitting here. I didn't order anything and I don't have my phone out. And I'm just like looking at this tree. And I started feeling like self-conscious and like, you know, it's like, that's something to say about my own securities, insecurities, but also I feel like about our society too, of just
Mm-hmm.
like, you don't often see that. And like, when you do see that, you're like, what's that person doing?
Dude, I would love to normalize just sitting and doing nothing. I wish more people would do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just sitting and like, what's that person staring at? They're so weird. It's like, well, they're just existing.
Yeah.
Like they're not doing anything wrong. That's so, yeah, I would love that too. I would love that too. And yeah, it was like, but I felt uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why do I feel uncomfortable? Because I'm kind of thinking about what I might like think about someone who's just sitting there staring off. And it's like, are they staring at me? And it's like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not allowed to like look at people because I don't want them to think that I'm like staring at their food or staring at them. Right. But I'm like curious, you know, like, oh, what'd they order? You know, it's like, I also don't want to like eavesdrop.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I was like, I got to do this more because yeah, you're not doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Just sitting there and you're not necessarily like meditating either. So like, yeah, so that's a good one. Let's normalize that.
Yeah. So I went through this whole process, this whole past year where, and this would take forever to go into. I basically had a fear of approaching and talking to women.
Yeah.
And so I just confronted it by just doing it over and over and over. And there was one moment where I was with a few friends and I was like, oh, there's a cute girl over there. I'm going to go talk to her. And she was waiting in line at Whole Foods, actually. And I go up to talk to her. And then right when I'm like getting close, she gets up in line. And so she's talking to the person. And so I sit there and I'm like, okay,
standing there,
just waiting.
There.
And then it takes her like 10 minutes. And there were so many different emotions, like what you're talking about, where I'm like, I'm such a creep, just standing here waiting to talk to her. I'm like staring at her and my friends are over there. And then I kind of had the same thing where I was like, I'm just going to sit in this. Yeah. I'm just going to wait. Cause like, I'm not really doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for her. And
totally.
If I were to like I'm going to talk to her, why not wait for her? Like it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna wait for her to go talk to her. So I just waited, and then I talked to her after like 10 minutes.
Dang. Just like, were you just standing at the door? Like,
just like, I wasn't like right next to her, but I was like a little bit away, just waiting, not like staring, but keeping an eye on her.
And if anybody like saw that, they'd be like, is that guy gonna like attack her? Or like, is this a potential like robbery that's about to happen? Like, what's going on?
Yep. Those were all my thoughts.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and that's so like, the fear of like talking to people that you don't know,
mm-hmm.
especially when there's like an attraction involved, I think is like so common. I mean, we all can relate to that because I think it's the fear of rejection, right? I think that's what it's coming down to.
Yeah.
Or looking like an idiot or saying something stupid. Or yeah, just being like, it's like you make up all these things that they're going to be like, ew, get away from me.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Talking to me. And like, how often does that actually happen? Like, I mean, only
so rarely,
only in like movies or shows or something. That's but yeah, just standing there. I bet that was tough.
That was something. All right. How do you balance extrinsic and intrinsic motivation? Let's talk about that.
Oh yeah. Extrinsic and intrinsic.
So we kind of went into like that a little bit in the beginning about making things easier. But yeah, how do you line that up with, because I think the goal is like you want them both to be aligned.
Yeah.
And like put you in the path that you want to be going on.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the extrinsic and intrinsic, debate. I feel like you see that like questioning going on a lot with like social media, and we then can be like questioning people's motivations, and you're like, did they do this cool thing? Did they go to this cool place because they wanted to, or because they know that it would get some good likes and some good content?
Yeah.
Was it really in their true heart that they wanted to pose right there, or did they just want that like? And I mean, I don't mean to like downplay that either. I don't mean to say that like that's an inherently bad thing, but it is interesting to like wonder about, and then to like reflect upon your own actions, right? I mean, social media aside, for me, it's like I do like little prizes. I think we all like little rewards, and what is it? I mean, it's like the dopamine hit, right, of pleasure. And that could be like going back to teaching, like the little sticker on your homework that says you did it 100%. That's an extrinsic motivation. It's nothing really, but it's something that just like a little boost. But like it can't be 100% extrinsic. I just like, it's not sustainable, and it's not realistic to think that like you're always going to get a little reward for all the good things you do or whatever. There's only so many stickers, like, and also, as a kid, like you're not going to get stickers forever. And like, and then going to like sport now, I'm like, extrinsic motivation is like that feeling of winning. That feeling, well, is that extrinsic? I don't know.
I think that might even be intrinsic.
That might be intrinsic, huh?
But like,
maybe like the
recognition, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
the picture on the podium, that's an extrinsic for sure. But it's that feeling, yeah. It's that feeling of crossing the line first. When you look around, and you're like, oh my god, I'm the first person here. Like that's an amazing feeling, and it's hard to get in anything, right? To be that first place person, and it might not be first either. It's that like the improvement too of like I used to be dead last, and now I'm like 50% of the field. That's huge. It's that progress, that like striving for just being the best version of yourself, knowing that you have like it's like there's just like built-in optimism of knowing that like you could be better because you've seen it in yourself before. You've seen that like winning champion in yourself before, or you've seen that like person who takes the high road and like does the like really awesome thing for their community or whatever, is the good person, the good Samaritan. And you like, that's like totally intrinsic, because you know that you could be that person at any time.
Yeah.
And you want to like strive for that. But like the extrinsic stuff is real for sure. I mean, some races, like you get a gift card, you get maybe even cash.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's fun.
It's a big motivator.
Yeah, it's a great motivator. And I was like, first thing I thought of though, when you asked this question was like our jobs, right? And like how passionate we are about our work definitely matters. But like so many people I talk to who are like just love their job and love what they do, at the end they still are like, it pays the bills, and that's the real motivation. I think it's tough, like with work. I think ultimately like we need a paycheck. That's extrinsic for sure. And then it's a matter of like, how much do you want to really love your job? How important is that? For me, it's pretty important. It's pretty important, but also it's not my entire life. So like, it doesn't have to be like the perfect dream job. I do like working for a company whose values like I really resonate with. And I think they are like doing great things for the world and people and like the environment overall. And that's important to feel that when I'm like not wanting to go in the office and I know I got to go in. But yeah, the paycheck is definitely an important factor, right? I mean, that's just life.
Yeah. That's the way it is.
Yeah. It'd be one thing if someone's story is about like, well, you're totally set for life income wise, you've got infinite funds. So then what do you do with your time? You know, then how are you going to spend your time? I think most people would not be working their job anymore.
Their current job. Yeah.
Depending on what they do. But I think a lot of people would not. That was interesting about teaching. It was like paycheck wasn't the motivator. It's not a high paying job.
Yeah.
You know? So there was like a lot of value and like currency and like seeing the growth of like our youth, you know, and like knowing that like you can make a positive impact in someone's life. That was huge. But the truth is like without the paycheck, without like the high salary that I was not getting, I mean, like it was easy to see myself burning out. And that's why I wanted to quit. That's why I left education. It was like, I knew that there's people who are working less stressful jobs and getting higher pay. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I felt burnout coming. So that's how I ended up changing careers. So it started out as intrinsic motivation to become a teacher. And then it was like, all right, there's external factors here that I need to pursue and change it up.
The extrinsic wasn't there. So the intrinsic burned itself out.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I haven't framed it like that in those words. So I like that. Good way of thinking about it.
All right. David Wild, everybody. David, where can people find out more about you?
Well, one fun fact is like, I'm not on the traditional social media.
Nice. I like that.
So, I mean, you can follow my workouts on my Strava.
Sweet.
I do have a Strava account. That's fun to like.
I'll make sure to add you on there.
Yeah, man, it's fun to see like other people's workouts, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm out here in Austin. Find me at the run groups, the group rides. Do
you want to shout out those groups that you talked about?
Yeah.
Purple Dragons?
Yeah. Purple Dragons. I'm going to shout them out. Definitely a fast crew. Good people. Violet Crown is a bike club that I've joined, and we have a race team too. And really great people. And there's also, there's a lot of people I want to shout out, but okay. I'll also shout out Black History bike rides. Some friends of mine, Ariel Marlowe, he's an integral part of this group, and we actually did a bike ride on Juneteenth and learned a lot about the Black history in Texas. Check them out. Really good people. And who else? Sheesh. I'm gonna forget something and I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't mention them. But those are the crews that I'm like rolling with these days. I mean, Breakfast Club too. Bike rides with Breakfast Club. Good people. And yeah. That's it for now.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for coming on. Super insightful conversation.
Thank you, Will.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Bye, everybody.